Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am your host, Daren Jaime, and we're going to bring you a forum, a discussion that's providing a deeper understanding of the issues and inequities that many people face. We'll present multiple points of view and will also promote civic engagement. We encourage you to stay tuned because the Social Justice Forums begins right now. The Housing Career Pathways is an initiative that's launched by the enterprise community partners and city agencies to help ensure the affordable housing industry generates quality and permanent jobs for people that are living in communities served by affordable housing providers. Now we have a group discussion, and sharing with us, we've got the executive director of Brooklyn Workforce Innovations, Aaron Shiffman, manager at Fordham Bedford Housing Corporation. We've got Reilly, who's also Director of Programs at Enterprise Community Partners, Michelle Mulcahy, and then also Housing Careers Pathways graduate, Tarsha Foster. And we thank you all for joining us.
Hi. Thank you.
Great. The gang is all here, and we're glad to have this conversation to be able to talk with you. And, when we talk a little bit about housing careers and pathways, I want to get the opportunity to talk, first of all, to Aaron, and you're the executive director. And Aaron, talk a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me here. Brooklyn Workforce Innovations is a nonprofit citywide workforce development organization. Our mission is simply to empower low-income, jobless New Yorkers to help them gain access to living wage employment opportunities and career paths. Founded in 2000, BWI offers New Yorkers with barriers to employment, free, high-quality, intensive job training and placement, and long-term career supports. This year, across 8 programs, BWI will enroll 850 adults and young adults from across the 5 boroughs while supporting graduates from previous years. We're excited to have partnered with HPD, the Public Housing Authority, and Enterprise to launch Career Pathways.
And Michelle, I want to talk about Career Pathways and talk a little bit about the work that you're doing. You're the Director of Programs for Enterprise Community Partners. And talk to us about the work, because when we talk about low-income individuals, having an opportunity to really gain what I call a hand up is really important.
That's right. And yes, thank you for having this whole collaborative on today. We're excited to talk about this initiative. As you mentioned, I'm with Enterprise Community Partners. We're a national nonprofit that helps make good home possible. We do this by investing capital to create affordable housing and community facilities. We create programs such as Housing Career Pathways to help people in affordable housing access opportunities to thrive. And we advocate for policies that increase the number of affordable homes and rental assistance, prevent housing discrimination, and otherwise protect and keep tenants in stable housing. We have a deep history here in New York as well. Since opening 35 years ago, we've committed more than $5 billion to create or preserve over 82,000 affordable homes in New York State. And as you mentioned, today we're talking about Housing Career Pathways, which was created in collaboration with those here and others. And it really seeks to leverage the economic power of the affordable housing industry to connect New Yorkers with good permanent careers in the affordable housing industry. And the program fills a gap in the hiring needs of affordable housing providers by creating a pipeline to qualified and trained hires. But most importantly, as you say, provides access to quality careers for those New Yorkers who live in affordable housing. It really allows affordable housing not just to be a platform for stability, but also a platform for access to greater economic opportunity. And this program was really created in a collaborative effort, as Aaron said, with the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, as well as the New York City Housing Authority. And it was informed by a whole range of stakeholders, including workforce providers like BWI, an advisory group of 17 housing providers that inform the program design based on what they look for in their hires. We had focus groups of potential participants to make sure that this program is compelling and met their training and support needs. And we also looked at data from CUNY that informed the types of jobs in the industry that are connected to career pathways and are relatively well paid in a growing field.
Yeah. Caitlin, I want to bring you in because obviously you have the opportunity to work alongside and talk about your relationship here.
Yeah, so Fordham Bedford Housing Corporation was founded in the Northwest Bronx in 1980 to provide community-sponsored, safe, sound, and affordable housing in the face of massive amounts of abandonment and arson creeping north in the Bronx. And we were founded by local community residents who were seeking opportunities to take control of buildings in the area that weren't being properly taken care of. And so it's a great opportunity for us to partner with the Housing Pathways Program to bring community residents with skills into our organization, because we were founded by community members and we like to be able to bring as many of our residents into our office and represent the people that we serve with those faces in the office as well.
Yeah.
And so
Tar-
this has been a fantastic opportunity for us.
yeah, thank you. And Tarsha, I know that you're a graduate of the program. For you, give me a little bit of detail about how the program worked and what were you able to get out of it?
Well, I started the program last year around November, October. They give you a intensive training on how to use Excel, how to be professional, how to job search, and to make a transition into white collar work. Me, I was doing blue collar work, so I was looking for something that was more satisfying, where I could make an impact on people in low, like as myself, in low income communities. After the training, they paired you up with the internship. After the internship, if the internship liked your work and you liked the work that they provided, you were then able to start a job career.
Yeah. And so how are things going for you right now?
Everything is going pretty great. I love it where I'm at. I got hired full time. They even talked to me about promoting me at the end of the year. I was able to help 12 people in the last quarter move into new apartments through HPD. So I'm feeling pretty excited about that.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome work. Aaron, I'm coming back to you because you are an actual awardee this year. So how does it feel to be an awardee and to be able to bring these services forward?
I mean, we're delighted at the opportunity to partner with Enterprise, New York City HPD, and NYCHA to deliver the Career Pathways training. We completed 2 cycles. Tarsha was a graduate from the second cycle. We have an upcoming third cycle, and the outcomes have been outstanding. There's been incredible demand from both employers, but then also job seekers to look for and identify the opportunity to break into an industry that offers pretty high wages and true opportunities for career advancement. So we feel like at BWI, we feel like workforce development is sort of most impactful for the job seeker, the employer, and the industry, but also for those providing funding for the initiative when it's clear what the intervention is seeking to address. So when Enterprise convened employer partners, those managing affordable housing in New York City, the agencies that oversee that work, and residents who are interested in identifying careers in those areas, we really felt like we had all the elements necessary to put together a strong program and a strong curriculum that would deliver great outcomes for men and women just like Tarsha. And that is exactly what BWI has done here. And we're very hopeful that we'll continue to advance the program and create another opportunity for continued cycles after the third one that's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that, and maybe you, Michelle, or somebody can talk about April 20. I think it's the 24th. You got your training cohort that's launching. When we talk about this training cohort that's launching, what can they expect as they take part in this?
I'll actually let Aaron speak to that.
Sure, and Tarsha sort of highlighted it. So it's right now we've knit together a curriculum that combines digital skills, workforce readiness, and industry knowledge and information, so that we can sort of level the playing field for the opportunity for our grads to go out and connect to employers like Fordham, Bedford, and like Pronto Housing, where Tarsha's working, and have the opportunity to really hit the ground running on day one. When workforce development is done at its best, we're really leveling the playing field for job seekers as they launch and take those brave first steps into a new career. So the training program is full on, full time, 4 weeks. We feel like we're really preparing individuals for what they're going to encounter in the first couple of weeks and months on the job. it's followed by, and Tarsha explained this earlier, an 80-hour paid internship opportunity where people can continue to learn, but they also have a on-the-ground introduction to a company that may be interested in hiring them at the completion of the internship.
Yeah. And so, Michelle, to get here, this is a pretty competitive process. Am I correct?
Well, so I think it has been competitive for folks who have been interested in the program because there's just such demand for the program. We've had interest from close to 1,000 people just for this current cohort, but all of that speaks to the need and interest in this program. And as Aaron said, our hopes to continue it. We've seen just in the first two cohorts really great outcomes. Over 80% of graduates so far have been able to be employed in the field. Most of those have been full-time with benefits, and we're seeing these starting wages at an average of over $45,000. So as Aaron said, we're really bolstered by the success we're seeing so far and hoping that after this next cohort, we're able to continue the program and offer this to both New Yorkers who are seeking these jobs as well as housing providers for whom this fills a really critical gap in their hiring pipeline.
Yeah. Caitlin, I'm going to let you jump in. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, it's been great being able to work with the folks at Enterprise and bring in some of these successful graduates of the program. There definitely is a gap between the skill set that people have in some of our communities and the skill set that's needed for these higher wage jobs. And so it's great to see an initiative like this working toward bridging that gap and working in the community that we serve and providing this training so that we can have this pipeline of candidates available to us that have the skills we need to fill the roles in their own community.
Yeah. Tarsha, when we talk about skills, what kind of skills do you feel that you gained and you were able to walk away from as a graduate of this program?
Well, initially, when I started this program, I definitely did not have any digital literacy skills. I have those skills now, which is most effective for me in the field on being professional. That was something that I felt I was okay at, but I did need extra work on it, and just basically having proper and good communication and effective, most of all, effective communication with others.
Yeah. And so where do we go from here? Obviously, you've got a great cohort that's coming forward. You've got the great plan that's going out. And then obviously the plan is really to really help in housing and skills. And talk to me about where do we go from here?
Well, as Aaron said, we have another cohort coming up in a couple weeks. And so there is still an opportunity for folks who are interested in participating to apply and participate in information sessions. And then certainly for those housing providers out there who are looking for access to this great pipeline of folks interested in the field, they can also reach out to talk about internship and employment opportunities.
Yeah, and Aaron, well, she got thrown with thunder there, but that's okay, because I wanted to talk a little bit about that interest and talk about are we seeing more and more of an interest in this particular area?
We are. I think we're seeing it from both the neighborhood job seeker, but also the employer. As you break into and launch a new program, you're still building the building blocks of your employer network. And so we've had the great opportunity to work with Enterprise and HPD and NYCHA on all the providers that manage affordable housing here in New York City. The reality is we're still a well-kept secret. There are more employers to identify and tap, and there are more jobs that we could make matches for. And so we're excited. The sort of true metric that drives impact and BWI's confidence, and I hope our partners' confidence that this is a program that has legs and should continue, is that 95% of the folks that have been placed into employment are still working, right? And that means that the employers are satisfied and the employees are satisfied. And those are key ingredients for success, and they're key ingredients for continued investment into the future. It's a fairly dynamic industry, and BWI with our partners are enabling people to feel comfortable on their first day of work. And we know that there are more New Yorkers that need employment, and we know that affordable housing management and asset management needs quality talent, and they would love to hire from within the communities that they serve. So we're excited. I know that Fordham, Bedford, has sort of raised their hand for an intern at the end of the next cycle, and we're hoping that we're going to continue to have repeat business and identify additional employer partners that will make hires into the future.
Yeah. Tarsha, you're going to get the last word here for somebody who may be thinking about this program. Talk to them about what it meant for you and what it's done for you.
If you're thinking about joining this program, I would say don't hesitate. It might seem a little scary or it might seem a little uncomfortable, but this is giving you an opportunity and a chance to, number one, build a career for yourself. Number two, help someone else that is in the same shoes or wearing the same shoes as you or someone else you know. And just number three, just be open minded. You put in the work and you'll get the results. BWI, they'll support you through the whole process. Even now that I've been at my job since November, December, I still can reach back out to BWI if I have any questions or concerns. So it's a family that you build that stick with you through your whole journey.
Great story, and thank you so much for being with us. I want to thank you all. We're out of time for the segment, but I want to thank both Aaron and Caitlin, Michelle and Tarsha for being with us, and continued success and much needed in our community. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All righty. We are taking a quick break, and guess what? We're going to have more coming up right after this.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Come start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Pasta dinner.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
New York State Governor Kathy Hochul recently revealed her proposal to roll back bail reform. The Katal Center recently rallied with organizers of impacted families as well as people, demanding the legislature reject the proposal and pass a budget to continue to decarcerate, close more prisons and jails, and invest in real safety. We've got joining us here discussing this the lead organizer at Katal Center for Equity, Health, and Justice, Melanie Dominguez. And Melanie, thank you for being with us. And when we talk about what's going on with the governor's proposal, obviously a step in the wrong direction, you feel, but what are the intended consequences if this plays out?
Absolutely. So basically, exactly what you said. In her executive budget, Governor Hochul proposed to eliminate the standard that judges set the least restrictive condition that will reasonably assure a person's return to court. And instead, the judges now will be left, if this happens, they're going to be left with widespread confusion and disagreement among child judges to determine whether or not they won't have any rules and guidelines to abide by now. So that's kind of like what will result. But not only that, this will mean that more Black and brown people and people that are in poverty will be detained in pretrial jails across the state. And when you look at it closer, what is happening in New York City, there's a crisis at the Rikers Island jail complex. And the rollbacks of bail reform will result in more people being funneled into Rikers Island that will be exposed to these life-threatening conditions. And just to put it into more context, the vast majority of people that are at Rikers right now are there for, pre-trial. They haven't been convicted of anything, but this rollback on bail reform will just exacerbate the crisis found there, and we cannot have that.
Well, what do you say to the critics who say, listen, you know what, the bail reform, it needed work, it should have probably been adjusted some. What do you say to critics who say this bail reform is just too lenient?
And it's not. The bail reform is not lenient, and the proof is in the data. We've seen that since the years that bail reform has been implemented, at the start of 2019 and in the years that follow, it has had no correlation to the spike in crimes. It really has not. But instead, what it has shown us is that it's proven to have worked. Instead of gutting back bail reform, we actually need to make sure that we're expanding it and giving people, especially Black and brown and low-income folks, the ability to wait for their court in the community. We all know that they stand a bigger fighting chance if they're in the communities fighting for the court cases rather than behind bars where they have so many barriers. They cannot have it's much harder to get in contact with their lawyers, to get in contact with just like finding the right documents that they need to fight their cases. And one of the things that I said earlier, like the rules in bail reform already make it so that the judges have a clear understanding of what is need to be done to make sure that people return to court. And so eliminating the least restrictive condition, like I said, will only generate more widespread confusion and disagreement among judges.
And when we talk about judges, obviously they are, they have sentencing guidelines. And with this bail reform that the governor's talking about, that could vastly, vastly change. What are you hearing from the people on the inside, the ones who have, incarcerated, dealing with this right now? What are you hearing from the population?
Yeah, and we at Katal, we have members that across the state who have been incarcerated or have loved ones that are currently incarcerated. And one of the things that they're widely concerned about is just the fact that gutting back bail reform will result in more people being funneled into the jail system. And like I said, being exposed to these life-threatening conditions. And people don't want that. And, when you have a loved one that's incarcerated, it's much harder to visit them. It's just so difficult for families. And it's just going to create more separation between families. And so having bail reform in the state that it is going to make sure that families stay connected, and it's going to give people a stronger fighting chance to fight their court cases.
And for those of us who are in the Bronx and, of course, New York City, a lot of people have always been talking about Rikers Island, how this actually could potentially impact what goes on at Rikers Island. From your perspective, how does this change if the governor's plan goes forward? How does it change what we could possibly see at Rikers Island?
Absolutely. So Rikers Island right now is in a state of crisis. Since Mayor Eric Adams took office, there's been at least 20 people that have passed away in New York City jails, and Rikers is the violence at Rikers is at an all-time high. And the jail population has been increasing because of the mayor's inability to put measures in place to reduce the jail population. And so, for example, since the mayor took office, there's been about right now the current jail population at Rikers is that of 6,000 people. And the last December, the Department of Corrections Commissioner, Luis Molina, had told the Criminal Justice Committee at City Council that they are expecting that another 1,100 people will be held pretrial by the end of this year. And so this is without gutting back bail reform. If you add gutting back bail reform to the mix, that's going to exacerbate the number of people that are being put in life-threatening conditions at Rikers Island. But not only that, it's going to take us further away from effectively shutting down Rikers. The only way to shut down Rikers is through decarceration. And so the jail population needs to go down. But right now, under Mayor Eric Adams, it's been going up. And with Governor Hochul's proposal to gut bail reform, it will just take us further away. And we cannot have that. And like I said, bail reform has been working. The data has shown us that it has no correlation with the spike in crimes. And then we have a lot of legislators up in Albany who are fighting and holding the line to protect bail reform because they know that this is the sensible thing to do for our communities to keep our communities safe. And at the end of the day, we also need the governor to invest in things like housing, healthcare, education, and jobs. That's ultimately what keeps our communities safe. We need that. And so instead of debating whether or not bail reform should be gutted, it should not. They should be debating around, what are other ways that we can invest and help our communities thrive.
Yeah. There was a recent rally in Albany you took part. Give us your takeaways from the rally in Albany. Were you encouraged by the support that you received?
Yeah, there's been a lot of meetings with legislators and just like making sure that we keep the momentum up around protecting bail reform and making sure that our communities understand what is at stake, but also understand what bail reform is all about. And so these rallies are really good at that and just like building the momentum, holding our elected officials accountable and holding the governor accountable, knowing that we will not stop fighting until we protect bail reform and we reject her proposal to gut it. And so there's a bunch of other rallies coming down the line as well. And a few of the organizers and advocacy groups that have been on the front lines are gearing up for that. But to just let you know, like bringing it back to what's happening in New York City, we do have a rally that is coming up around, it's going to be on Thursday, April 27th at 1 p.m. at Foley Square. And that's the day that there's going to be a federal court hearing to determine whether or not there should be a federal receiver that should take control of Rikers or if the Adams administration will remain in charge. And so that just goes to show how dire the conditions at Rikers have gotten, that now we're at a moment where the federal government needs to intervene. And so we're going to be out there to demand that the federal government does take control of Rikers from the Adams administration. But even that, we are going to continue to push the mayor to address the crisis by cutting the number of people that are incarcerated in New York City jails, shutting down Rikers, and then again, like investing in our communities in things that we actually need to help us thrive. And so that's a little bit about what's happening and what we have coming up.
Yeah, and when you talk about Mayor Adams, obviously a lot of people not happy when it comes to how he's handled this particular situation. Are you optimistic that, or are you even confident that the mayor can be able to handle this by himself or his administration, or are you adamant about saying, listen, we need some federal intervention right here?
Yeah, and I guess to your point, like right now, what's exacerbating the crisis at Rikers is the gross mismanagement of the jail system. And we see that under the Adams administration, there's been a culture around not doing the proper investigation that is needed when a correctional officer is it's being charged of like misconduct, of abuse of power, and abusing of those that are incarcerated at the jail complex. And so they are getting away with so much and this is just like ultimately impacting those that are incarcerated at Rikers, which the majority, like I said, haven't been convicted of anything, are just waiting at Rikers for their day in court, which can take months in this current situation that we are in right now in the city. And so we have an understanding that the mayor has done absolutely nothing to address this mismanagement and alleviate the crisis at Rikers. And so we are pushing for there to be for the federal government to intervene. But even so, even if they do that, we still need Mayor Eric Adams to commit to shutting down Rikers and put measures in place to decarcerate.
What has been the conversation with the Adams administration? I mean, obviously we know what's on the table and what needs to get done, but are you satisfied that at least talks are going in the right direction? Are there no talks at all? Give us where we are.
Yeah, and I guess we can take it back to the mayor's preliminary budget where he proposed $11.2 billion budget for the NYPD to expand discriminatory policing practices. What that means is that our communities, Black and brown communities, are just going to be hyper-policed and then ultimately resulting in an increase in the jail population. But while he's doing that, the mayor is simultaneously proposing deep cuts to essential programs across the city, which include mental health services, legal services, summer youth employment, homelessness services, all of these things that are so essential in making sure that our community members are not being funneled into the jail system to begin with. And so his budget proposal quite clearly shows us his lack of commitment to keeping us on the path to shutting down Rikers. And so one of the things that we're going to have to be doing is pushing the mayor and holding him accountable that he needs to commit to shutting down Rikers, and he needs to propose a budget that reflects that. And right now it doesn't.
And I know you're an organizer, so I got to get this question in. Talk about how the public can really join in on the fight, join in to raise the voice and support the work that you guys are doing in terms of this, the bail reform initiative and dealing with the issues of the incarcerated and mass incarceration.
Absolutely. So like I said, for the public, if you have time, please join us at our rally to close Rikers. It's going to be Thursday, April 27th at 1 p.m. at Foley Square. And you can also check us out online or on our socials at katalcenter.org. That's Katal.
And so what else do we have on the agenda coming up for the Katal Center? I mean, maybe people may not be so familiar with your organization. So before we get a chance to close out, I do want to have an opportunity for you to talk a little bit about the work that you guys do at the organization.
Absolutely. So the Katal Center for Equity, Health, and Justice, we're an organization that's based in Brooklyn, but we work across the state around issues regarding ending mass criminalization, mass incarceration, and ending the war on drugs. And we do that all while building the leadership and organizing capacity of neighborhood residents. So we've been doing a lot of outreach in our community to make sure that our community members understand what is at stake here and understand what the problem is with gutting bail reform and how important it is to protect it, but then also how it relates and connects to the fight to close down Rikers. And so we've been doing a lot of that. So if folks are energized and interested in joining us for outreach, do reach out and stay connected. So my name is Melanie, and you can reach out to me via phone. My number is 516-588-0127. Thank you.
All righty, Melanie Dominguez, lead organizer for the Katal Center. And we want to thank you for being with us, talking about this very important topic, mass incarceration, also bail reform. We'll see what happens, and we'll continue to follow this and bring our viewers up to speed as the governor puts her forth plan, and as you also put forth your initiative in trying to get the governor to roll this back. Thank you so much, Melanie, for being with us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you all.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yes, so we're taking a quick break here on the Social Justice Anti-Violence Forums. We'll be right back after this.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that can be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker boards.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at shecanstem.com.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Hey, boss. Okay.
He said I'm fine.
Me the bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Port Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
Sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug. You know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for you. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
And welcome back. Project Drawdown is one of the most influential research-backed databases of climate solutions on the planet. Now, the project's mission is to help the world reach drawdown and stop catastrophic climate change quickly, safely, and equitably. We are pleased to be joined by the Director of Storytelling and Engagement at Project Drawdown, Matt Scott. And Matt, good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here, good to be part of the program, and good to talk about climate solutions and the work we do with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we talk about climate solutions, you know, the show is social justice, and then we talk about climate. How do you relate, for somebody who may not be so familiar, to make the parallel between social justice and climate?
Yeah, well, so often when we think of climate solutions and when we think of social justice, we think that those things don't relate and that they don't go together. But the reality is that when we look at climate issues, health, jobs, equity, the economy, these are all things that tie in with climate. And so one of the things I like to bring to people is that climate change and climate solutions relate to all of us. They intersect with all of our lives, whether or not we think about them a lot. The other piece is that you don't need to be a scientist or an expert in climate to be someone who's doing something about it. So there's a lot to unpack there, but definitely happy to dive in today.
Well, I think back to Vice President Al Gore at the time, and really him spending a lot of time addressing this on the campaign, even when he was running for president, talking a little bit about climate change. A lot of people said, well, you know what? There's a lot of things we can talk about, but this isn't the one. The reality is, as we fast forward, we've got a lot more people talking about it. The issue is very great, and there's a lot to really deal with that we really could deep dive into. So for you, talk to me about how prevalent climate change has become amongst the conversations that we're having right now, given the fact that a while ago, just a short while ago, a lot of people were off the grid.
Yeah, it's really interesting because a few years back, there was a study that was done of about 14,000 people who were asked the question, what comes to mind when you think of climate change and global warming? And only about 3% of those folks responded thinking about climate solutions and what they can do, which is really why Project Drawdown exists, to help people see that solutions are something that we should be considering. And again, that it's not just about the emissions. Like, one thing that I talk about often is that, like, I can't picture a gigaton of carbon and what that looks like. I can't picture what emissions look like, but what I can picture is people being fed when we reduce food waste and food insecurity going down, or, you know, just the different co-benefits of solutions, which is what we call them. You know, thinking of Al Gore in particular, because you mentioned him, I actually went to a climate reality project training, a training for his organization back in, I want to say 2018 or 2019, with like 2,000 other people in attendance. And I was one of those people who, like, I showed up because a friend mentioned to me that it was something I should do. But I felt so out of place, and like the issues I prioritize with justice, with just like human well-being, weren't being talked about as much in the conversation. And it was only when I saw a panel come on stage that was focused on justice and issues like a lot of what you cover that I said, oh, okay, like the issues I do care about and prioritize relate to climate change. And so if anything, I would just say that, you know, the things that we've been concerned about, the inequities we've been concerned about do relate to climate. And I think a lot of the work now, and part of what I focus on, is helping people see the connection between the issues that we care about and our health, our equity, our own well-being, especially as underrepresented communities, and this issue of climate, which frankly like hasn't represented people of color, hasn't represented Black people or indigenous communities as much as it should.
When you talk about environmental justice, social justice go hand in hand. And really, to be able to talk about climate change is a good thing for us here, because it's a topic that I've been wanting to deal with for a quick second, because I see so many people who walk around like, oh, well, it's not really existing. But then you look and you see so much evidence that gives light to the fact that we really are in the midst of climate change. Now, first things first, let's break this down. For somebody who may not be so familiar, we're sitting here talking about climate change. We hear the word, but somebody may not know what the definition is, and how do you define it? How's it broken down? So for the novice that doesn't know, just like when you entered into that room, if they just entered our TV set today and said, listen, I hear him talking about climate change, but I really don't know what it's all about. How do you break it down?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing I would say is that climate change is really looking at a broader trend. It's not about, oh, I went outside today and it's 90 degrees and things are really warm and that's the sign of global warming. What climate change is really about is looking at centuries and centuries, really, and looking at decades and decades and showing a trend that's happening year over year with more extreme weather, with more extreme heat. So, you know, the way that things were decades ago, even in terms of our climate, have changed, and we do experience those impacts. I think something else I would point to, just to help someone understand what climate change looks like in our day-to-day lives, is again that more extreme weather events that are happening. So for instance, I think about like everything with the deep freeze in Texas just a few years back, which knocked out power for folks in much of the state. I think of, you know, other issues when it comes to hurricanes. And like I live in Washington, D.C., but initially I'm from the New York, New Jersey area. And I think of like Hurricane Sandy and other events like that, which are increasing in occurrence and becoming more extreme. And with time, we will only see those extreme events increase if we're not doing something about the climate, if we're not doing something to remove the greenhouse gases or the heat trapping gases in the atmosphere that cause this problem. And so that's like my simple explanation of climate change. But I think that one thing that's really beautiful too is that less than, at least according to statistics or according to survey research, like less than 10% of Americans don't believe that climate exists or are denying climate. I think that there's definitely something there around looking to the science and looking to like the data and being able to trust that to see like, okay, like this is a thing that's happening. Where Project Drawdown comes in is like the stage 2 of, okay, what can we do about it?
So let me talk about stage 2. We talk about solutions. A lot of people identify what the problem is. You really spend a lot of time talking about tangible solutions. And when we talk about tangible solutions, what are some of the tangible solutions that we could be exploring when it comes to the issue of climate change?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different areas of solutions. And one of the things that I'd encourage folks to do is to check out drawdown.org, our website, especially at drawdown.org/solutions, because you could go through about 100 climate solutions that are listed out on the Drawdown website. And actually, just taking things further back, I'm not, this is not a plug for the Drawdown book, but I will mention back in 2017, this book, the Drawdown book came out. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it featured the climate solutions that were, as you mentioned, based in science, based in data that could do something about our world. So just to give like an overview of some of the areas that climate solutions exist in, there's transportation, there's food, agriculture, and land use, there are buildings, there's industry. So there are a lot of different areas where climate solutions apply. So to give a few examples, I mentioned one of them with reducing food waste a little bit earlier. That falls into the food, agriculture, land use area, and that's actually one of the most impactful things that we could do to reduce emissions that we're putting into the atmosphere, is to stop wasting food and putting that into landfills. Composting is another food-related climate solution, but also stuff that we just do day to day because it's a better option. And so, for example, I would mention, like, in any major city, like, public transportation is something that we use, and public transportation is also one of those core climate solutions, along with like bikeable cities. So you see those bike lanes that are popping up in more and more cities. The list goes on, but I think what I would say is that climate solutions are everywhere all around us. And really the goal of us at Project Drawdown, and I think of the climate community overall, is to make sure that the solutions that are best for the climate, whether it's with our buildings and making sure they're more efficient, our electricity and making sure that we're getting that efficiently through solar and other means, that those are the best solutions, that they're the most affordable, that they're most efficient, that they are just the best while also helping the planet.
Give me a little bit about Drawdown Stories program, because in addition to that, you've got a special program that really highlights some very special people. And so you talked to us a little bit about the book, but let's talk a little bit about the program and give our viewers some insight.
Yeah, so the Drawdown Stories program is my baby within Project Drawdown. I joined the team about 2.5 years ago. And what was really powerful about that is that Project Drawdown was looking for someone to do storytelling overall, but where I focus that is on underrepresented communities, especially because when it comes to climate conversations and when it comes to our climate world, you look at climate nonprofits and they are largely made up of white communities and less representative of communities of color, for example. And our voices just aren't as prevalent in the media, which is why platforms like yours are so important, so that we can be heard, so that our issues could be brought to the forefront. And so I really went about creating a program that centered on voices that often go unheard, that passes the mic. And the main initiative of Drawdown Stories that I launched has been Drawdown's Neighborhood. So about a year ago, we released the first set of interviews from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, featuring 11 folks. And since then, we've actually filmed stories in 3 other cities. So in Atlanta, Georgia, which has been released and you can find at drawdown.org/neighborhood. The Twin Cities with Minneapolis and St. Paul. New Orleans was filmed back in January, and that will be coming out in the next couple months. And we're actually, just as news for you, planning on telling more stories in the tri-state area, but that includes the Bronx. So we'll talk more about that, but you could expect some more New York area stories from the Bronx and nearby coming later this year. So ultimately, it's about bringing our stories to the table, and not just our stories about how we're implementing climate solutions, but like, who are we? What does it take to show up? What are the barriers to show up? There's a lot that, that Black people, that other underrepresented communities need to face and navigate. And I'm just proud that, I could put those stories in front of the climate community so that people could be more aware of, like, how much it actually takes for us to show up and make the impact we make.
You touched on what I was getting ready to ask you, because I wanted to ask, when you look at these communities, what are some of the common barriers that we're finding, particularly in people of color, when it comes to climate change? What are some of the barriers that maybe other people are not so familiar about?
Yeah, well, not only, so there are a lot of barriers that come up, unfortunately, but one of the barriers, I would say, when it comes to people of color in climate is that, number one, there's just like this victimhood mentality for us. And this isn't just specific to climate. Like, oftentimes people might look at, even me, for example, as a young Black man, and not think that I'm capable of contributing to solutions, contributing to progress, right? And that's something that I've found in interviewing people, that whether it's women or men or people of different, a variety of backgrounds, that so many people want to contribute and make a difference. And there are barriers because people don't think that people who look like us are able to contribute, or people who come from these underrepresented backgrounds can contribute. So there's definitely just the idea that so often we've been looked at as victims and not as, real world superheroes who could be part of the solution. And the other piece of that is that all the other barriers that come up in our day-to-day lives, whether you're a woman and you're navigating sexism, or a person of color navigating discrimination and racism. Like, these are all things that are barriers for us. So I think, for example, of one of the stories from our Atlanta series with Kendrick Kelsey, who works at the Life Cycle Building Center doing great work. And, one of the things that's in his video that probably would surprise people is a conversation that I had with him where he was telling me about just the barriers that he's faced as a Black man just to show up. And he talks about being pulled over by the cops in that experience. There's a lot that he talks about in terms of his strength and his power and what he's able to bring. But just to be able to put those stories and realities in front of people, and especially in front of like a mostly white climate community, I'm really proud that that I could like leverage Project Drawdown as a platform to help people understand how we live and really how incredible it is that we contribute to solutions, because there's so much that we need to also do just to solve problems that are caused by, racism, sexism for many groups, so on and so forth, right?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I really love having an opportunity to have a conversation with you is simply because they're just that. There are so many people and so many faces that we don't get to see and we will never know, but it's also mediums such as yourself that really bring that to light, because this is an issue that doesn't always necessarily get the attention that it should, and at the same time, when the attention does come, it's always focused in another direction. So thank you for the work that you do in terms of bringing to light stories and neighborhoods and people, because I think it's so important that we see people that relate to us. I think cultural competence is key. Got to get ready to get out of here on this segment, Matt, but I do want to get an opportunity to give you an opportunity to let our viewers know how they can get possibly the book, get connected to you. How do they go about doing that?
Look, all people need to do is go to drawdown.org for everything about just the work that we're doing. And you could click around, and there's a lot there. Thankfully, with the generous support of donors and others who are able to contribute. So if people are able to give a little to actually support the work that I do, that we do at Project Drawdown, that really means a lot. But you could check out Drawdown Stories at drawdown.org/stories. You could check out the Drawdown's Neighborhood series at drawdown.org/neighborhood. And you could also just get in touch with me and with our stories program at stories@drawdown.org. I mentioned that currently we are actually soliciting some different nominations for people in the New York area and a few other areas, including the Bronx. And so if you know folks working on climate solutions that we should know, definitely reach out to stories@drawdown.org. But thanks again for having me. This has been incredible.
Matt, we definitely got to do it again, all right?
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Matt Scott, our guest here, Director of Storytelling and Engagement at Project Drawdown. Listen, come to the end of our show today, and we hope that you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Bronx Social Justice and Anti-Violence Forums. Now, if you want to rewatch the edition, all you got to do is catch the recablecast right here on BronxNet TV. And if you want to join the conversation, present your point of view, well, you can do that. Visit our social media pages at BronxNet TV, and then we invite you again. Join us next week. We're going to continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness across the globe. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care. God bless.